Happy New Year, everyone. My name is Jingjing Liu. In this presentation, we're going to look at how flexible demand or flexible loads, we use those terminologies interchangeably, how they can help support the grid in different forms. We're going to talk about different mechanisms, technologies, and understand their performance. So as you probably have heard in Marco's overview of grid interactive efficient buildings, so GEBs are essentially buildings that are not only very energy efficient, but they also use energy in a time-smart fashion. And when we talk about demand flexibility, we're primarily talking about load shed and shift in this presentation. We have a lot of educators in the audience. This is an important topic to get on your radar for the future building operation and service workforce. And the reason is there's important support to the grid. I have a couple examples on the screen on the right. So the duck curve issue in California is pretty well known. So using load flexibility, we can move a lot of loads from the evening hours to mid of the day to soak up the solar generation and help decarbonize the grid and also improve reliability. And on the bottom, so for those of you who live in California, you probably remember back in early September 2022, there was a grid emergency situation. We were on the brink for rolling blackouts, and we received a text message from the governor's office on cell phones to ask people to start shedding loads. So that was a load flexibility that ultimately saved the day. So how do we get load flexibility? There are fundamentally two different mechanisms. They are often serve a little bit different grid objectives, although they're not mutually exclusive. So first of all, we have utility demand response programs for the last couple of decades. These DR programs, discrete events, are really good for both the economic operation of the grid as well as for emergency situations. And then the second category is to get load flexibility through time varying electricity rates to the customers to give them a signal to use to change their load consuming behavior. So that includes time of use rates and more dynamic pricing signals such as hourly pricing. So talking about that, using hourly dynamic retail electricity price to motivate load flexibility has been a major strategy in California. And it's a multi-pronged strategy that included multiple policies, the goal that you saw, IOU pilots, and also a big effort called the CalFlex Hub, which is funded by the California Energy Commission. It's a RDD&D program. We've been working on it for a couple years by now, have a couple more years to go. And the primary goal of this program is to build up a pipeline of technologies with the capability of automatically receiving and responding to dynamic electricity price signals as well as GHG signals. And send it to the load flexible devices to change their load consumption pattern. So this gives you a sense of the partners in CalFlex Hub. We have 16 funded partners and many more are voluntary. It's worth noting that the Southern California Edison utility has made a significant investment on this effort. We have been coordinating with them on their dynamic rate pilot with a portfolio of projects being identified. And if you're interested in exploring ways for us to collaborate in CalFlex Hub, please feel free to go to our website with the link shown on the screen. You can sign up for CalFlex Hub quarterly newsletters. And here's the technology portfolio in CalFlex Hub. So we have nearly 20 projects, and this portfolio is still being updated and growing a little bit. So it covers multiple sectors from residential to commercial and large campus. And so the California Energy Commission wanted to focus more on the mass market technologies, which is referring to the residential sector primarily. So you see the green part of this diagram shows all the residential technologies that we're covering in CalFlex Hub. And so in all of these projects, we are adding the automated price response capability on some existing technology that we call them base technologies, where the loads are possible to flex. And so in some cases, these base technologies are already fully commercialized in some examples, including smart thermostats, heat pump water heaters, EV charging in homes and pool pumps. And in other cases, the base technology is in the pre-commercial or early commercialized stage. We have a couple projects that are looking at integrated heat pump systems for both home heating and water heating. There are also some technologies that are still in the system integration and early field demonstration stage. We have a project where integrating smart ceiling fans with thermostat controlling AC, coordinating with AC load. We have a couple projects looking at home energy management systems and smart panels. And then for small, medium commercial buildings, the yellow part, we have a couple projects. We have a project looking at a cloud-based energy management system, controlling different end uses. And then there's another project we're looking at advanced predictive controls for heat pump system. And then for larger commercial buildings, we are looking at sophisticated predictive controls to receive and respond to price signals in a customized fashion for a given building. And then we also have a few projects on campuses. So we're collaborating with UC Merced, where we're using predictive control to leverage their chill water thermal energy storage tank to shift load. And we're also working with UC San Diego, where we're shifting load with EV charging on their campus, as well as some stationary batteries. So in each of those CalFlex Hub project, the project have its own solution in terms of how to get the dynamic price signal from our test server, and also converting that price signal into control commands that can be sent ultimately to the load flexible devices that's consuming the energy. So for each of those project solutions, we have summarized them into those 4 general categories, as you can see in the diagram. A couple of those categories of solutions involves using a cloud. So in this example, you can have the original manufacturer of the low flexible device. For example, for an EV, we have BMW created its own cloud that can receive the price signal and control the EV charging in homes. And then, but the cloud doesn't have to be provided by the manufacturer of the low flexible device. It can be provided by a third party. We call them automation service providers. And downstream of that, there could be different scenarios that are not even limited to what we're showing here. The manufacturer's cloud could be the next step, or it can be a central gateway within the building. It can also it can be a local controller that's receiving the signal downstream of the third-party cloud. So we have all of those scenarios in our projects. And then, so the pathway of getting price signal doesn't have to involve a cloud. We have one project where integrated heat pump has its own local controller that have the ability to receive price signal directly and control the water heater and heat pump. Sorry, the heat pump and water storage tank. And another pathway is to have a central gateway within the building, whether that's a home or a commercial building, where that can receive the price signal and then in turn control multiple devices within the building. Then I'm going to show you two project examples in a little bit more detail. So this is a project where this is a residential integrated heat pump example provided by a partner called Harvest Thermal. They are this technology has been fully commercialized, although it's been primarily installed in the Bay Area. The company is trying to expand their applications in different climate zones more broadly. So this technology involves a Senko 2 heat pump outdoor unit that generates hot water at a high temperature around 150 degrees that gets stored in the highly insulated water tank. And then this hot water is used in the home both for things like showers and also for heating the home. So there's a heating, there's a hot water coil that goes into the air handling unit in the home. And all of this is being controlled by a local controller that also receives the price signal and converting that into controlling of the various parts in the system. You can see a picture here. So Harvest Thermal has done has done testing in both spring and summer season last year and in 4 different homes in the Bay Area. This is an example of the testing results from one of their spring tests at one of the homes. As you can see, the bars in this chart represent the 24-hour shape of the price signal. So the red bars are the high price periods. You can see a shorter high price periods in the morning and the longer one in the evening. That is very much emulating the duck curve shape. So they get this signal from our CalFlex price server, and the system's load shape that would have been this orange line, which is the baseline load shape with a large morning peak without doing price responsive controls. Whereas after incorporating price response controls, the load shape is this green line, much more concentrated in the middle of the day, taking advantage of the low price period in the middle of the day. And the system does this by charging and discharging the hot water tank 2 times in a day, as illustrated in this blue curve that shows the state of charge of the tank. So this technology is really important because hot water heating and space heating in homes represent roughly 2/3 of the energy consumption in a typical home. And it also, because of the high efficiency of the heat pump system, as well as its ability to store hot water to shift load consumption to flatten it, it presents a promising pathway for home electrification when we have limited panel capacity in the home, especially in older homes. And then I'm going to show you another technology example for commercial buildings. So in this case, our partner Elexity has a commercial product of a cloud-based energy management system and called Demand EX. So it has incorporated the ability to receive the price signal from our CalFlex Hub server, and it turns that into thermostat set point control signals and pushes that to the smart thermostats in the commercial building that they're testing on the UC Davis campus. There are 2 buildings involved. And that integration is done through a cloud-to-cloud integration with Pelican's API. So that would change the air conditioning loads in that building. As you can see, so starting in the evening, the thermostat set point would be raised by a few degrees, and you can see a load shed from the curve we're showing. And a few hours before the high price period, the electricity system has done pre-cooling for the building for a few hours. So this resulted load shape change that you're seeing is a lot like what we have been seeing in the traditional demand response programs. Even though the underlying mechanism of triggering that load change is different between in the demand response dispatched signal versus dynamic price signal. So given this similarity, this is a good segue for us to look into some of the field performance that we have seen from demand response field performance. So even for a very simple demand flexibility strategy that we just looked at by changing the HVAC thermostat setting, the resulted performance in the field can be actually quite complex because there are many, many factors that are at play. So we have been doing research work around benchmarking demand flexibility performance in real buildings in the field for a few years by now. And we, in our framework for this work, we have categorized all of the key influential factors into those three categories. So there are a lot of factors that are relatively stable related to the building characteristics. And then there are some factors that are actually changing from one day to another, from one event to another. And then on top of all this, there's also stochastic factors that are even harder to capture. So in order to understand the influence in the performance from all of these factors we just saw, we took an empirical analysis approach. So first of all, we have created a standardized metric that helps us with characterizing the performance. This demand decrease intensity metric, we also sometimes call that shed intensity for short, that measures the average kW load shed during a DRE event and normalized by the building floor area. So it come out as a watt per square foot metric. And what you're seeing in this graphic is the results of nearly 100 big box retail buildings. These buildings are relatively similar. They have also implemented very similar DR strategy, which is by increasing the cooling set point by 3 degrees, and also turning off about half of the lights on the sales floor in these retail stores. So what you're seeing is each of those box plot, each column represent a building, and each of the dots that is represent a 2-hour long DRE event. The performance, the watt per square foot load shed performance measured in a 2-hour long DRE event. So as you can see that the performance for a typical building can vary quite a lot from one event to another. And it's really important to understand what accounts for that kind of variation, because in a lot of the DR response, the DR program design, there's a strong component of paying for the actual performance. So given what we just looked at, when we measure the building's demand flexibility metric in a particular day, in a particular event, it is important to capture under what circumstances or conditions was that performance measured, so that this kind of construct would allow us to do trend and correlation analysis. So I'm going to show you an example. Using this approach and framework, we have this is one example. We look at one influential factor, which is how long a DR event was, how that single factor can influence the performance. Again, this is results built on the same group of retail buildings that you just saw in the previous slide. And what we're seeing is the load shed intensity watt per square foot metric could decrease it by as much as 40% overall. This is aggregated results from the 100 or so buildings when the DR event stretches longer from 2 hours to 6 hours long. So that was just one example of how a single influential factor may impact a building's performance in the field. And in this most recently published report, we have looked into the influence of many more categories of influential factors. So there are different parameters for weather, the event timing, what the HVAC system type looks like for a given building, the building type. There's many different factors under that category. And what is the vintage of that building? And that often has a lot to do with the overall energy efficiency of the building. Thermal mass is another pretty deep topic that we looked into. And there's also operations and commissioning side of things. So if you're interested in understanding a little more how these different things might affect a building's demand flexibility, please feel free to download this report and look into more details. And some of this work will also be incorporated into a new training pilot that the LBNL team is collaborating with BESS Center. And we're acknowledging that for our current workforce of building operators, there's a really big gap in terms of being able to help them feel comfortable with owning, operating, maintaining GEP technologies in their buildings. So some of the gaps that we're tackling include helping them to feel more comfortable with using building automation systems to do performance troubleshooting, and also provide some building science to help understand what's driving the efficiency and demand flexibility performance in the building. So in this pilot, we are going to heavily highlight hands-on practices and learning opportunities using the FlexLab facility at LBNL, where we have a real building zone scale test bed where we can and a real BAS system to help the trainees to operate on a live system to practice those skills. So if you're interested in this pilot, we will have more information forthcoming in the next few weeks. So feel free to get in touch with Peter or Larry at BESS Center. Thank you very much. And this is my contact information in case you have any questions afterwards. So I'm looking at a question sent from Larry. Why has TES, thermal energy storage, not been more widely adopted? Thermal ice storage system like a promising way to reduce cooling loads. Yes, so that's a good question, and it's true that TES is indeed a very important strategy for shifting load and for load flexibility. I think the one of the challenge with the adoption of that technology is the footprint and space required within buildings, especially if we're talking about retrofit scenario, and often you know, the loads, the structure loads from adding a thermal storage system is also another challenge besides the space itself. So But as I showed in CalFlex Hub work, we are working with such a very large scale thermal energy storage system at the UC Merced campus, where they're using a large chill water tank to align the energy consumption of their chiller system with solar panels that they have on the campus.